Hi, this is Michael Becker, and in this Tinderbox lesson, we're going to cover a lot. We're going to talk about how to use a function to create a bulleted list, and not just a bulleted list, a nested list. Basically, the first set of bullets and then a second set of bullets within your Tinderbox file. So without further ado, let's just jump right in and take care of that and do it. All right, so here we have a Tinderbox file, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a bulleted list. So we're going to start by creating some notes. So we'll say note 1, note 2, note, and let's take off all caps here, I don't like that. Note 1, note 2, note 3, note 4. And let's go ahead and tab these in so we've got our bulleted list. So our objective here is we want to be able to select note 1, and then when previewing note 1, notes 2, 3, and 4 will be previewed as bullets under note 1. And the reason why I like to do this is I'm able to separate my content from my structure. So rather than bulleting those lists within the particular note itself, I can keep the notes of each of those bullets separate, which will allow me to it really improves my thinking and my overall organizational structure of my files. So we're going to go ahead and preview these notes, and you'll see that we're not seeing anything in the preview, which is to be expected. So if we go here and say note 1 text, and we'll say note 2 text, note 3 text, and note 4 text. Okay, so now when we preview those notes, we actually see text in our notes, which is to be expected. Now let's go back to what we want to accomplish here. We want to be able to have, when I select note 1, have notes 2, 3, and 4 being represented as a bulleted list. And let's pop over to the W3C Schools website and take a look at building lists. So if you want to build a list in HTML, and remember that's really what Tinderbox is doing, is generating HTML file outputs. You'll want to have it generate this type of HTML for you. Basically, give yourself a title, drop in some UL tags, and then we can go ahead and remove this out of there. That's not necessary. Drop in some UL tags, drop in some Lee tags, close the UL tag, and close out the body tag. And then by doing this, let me go ahead and reset the sizing here. By doing this, this generates an HTML list, and that's what we're trying to do. So we want Tinderbox to produce this output for us. So let's take a step back and show you how that works. So we're going to start with building our template. And we're going to have a basic template. We'll call it T-list children. Will be the name of our template. And what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and assign T-list children template to note 1. Okay. Now, what do we want to have in T-list children template? Let's first make sure our template, the basic template function, and the output for our template is going to work. So we're going to have some action code here. And we're going to go down here. And I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to say in the body of my text, I want the attribute, the variable vListChildren to show up in the body of my text here. And so in the action code up here, I'm going to say variable string vListChildren. So what you're seeing here is I'm declaring a variable, and for the initial test, what I'm going to say is I'm going to say vListChildren equals hello world. Okay, because what we want to do is just make sure that our template works. And so I have a template, and I'm saying run some action code that creates a variable called vListChildren, populate that variable with the hello world, and then pass that value into the body of the template. So if we go up here and look now, you'll see we're getting hello world as expected. So we know our base level template's working. Now what we want to do is to think about how do we go about getting the value of these names of these children into this variable as a bulleted list. And let me show you how we're going to do that. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to use a function. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm now going to create a function called function list children. And we're going to go function list children. All right. So now we have our basic shell of our function, and now we're going to go ahead and get started. So let's think about what we need to be able to pass this information from my note to that to the function, to have the function help us process the children. Well, first and foremost, we want to know what note we've selected. We want to tell the function, this is the note I've selected, go grab my children and produce a bulleted list for me. So the first thing I want to know is what's the ID number of this note. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to say function list children ID. And so essentially what this is going to say, Tinderbox, hey Tinderbox, when you launch this apply this template to this note, create the variable list children and then populate the value of list children with the function list children based on the ID of the note that we currently have selected. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be passing this ID number to the function and then having Tinderbox properly process that note. So let's go ahead back to our function and go through this process. So we're going to create a couple variables here. We're going to say vlist list equals vchildren. So we're going to need a list of my children, and I'm going to also need an output for that list. So we're going to do the vstring vchildren list. Okay, so we've created two variables for ourselves. Now we're going to go and collect our children. So we're going to populate the first variable we just created, vchildren, and we're going to say equals collect children of. Now here's the first step we need to do. Remember, I'm passing the ID number. I'm passing the ID number from the template to the function, and so we've got to give a variable for the function to be able to accept that ID number. And now we're going to say ID here and ID. So what we're now doing is saying, hey Tinderbox, go collect the children of the note ID and grab the ID numbers of those children. And just to make sure that that's working, let's go ahead and put our return function here, and we're going to say return our vchildren list, and let's spell this properly, vchildren list and vchildren list. So what we're saying is, hey Tinderbox, return the value of vchildren list to the function. And right now what we're going to say is our vchildren list is going to be equal to vchildren. Right? So we're methodically stepping through our process. So we're saying, Tinderbox, go grab the ID, take the ID that I've just passed you, go collect the children for that particular note, that note's ID, and get its children's ID numbers. And so just to make sure that we can demonstrate that that works, what we're now going to say is return that vchildren list to the template. So now when I do this, my expectation is I'm going to see the ID numbers of these three notes in the template. And there you go. There are the ID numbers of those three notes in the template. And if we go and turn on the column view, use column, you'll see that we can actually see ID 15 is this one, ID 18, ID 19, ID 15, 18, 19. So we actually know that we're getting the proper notes back into our function for those children. So we've got our ID numbers for the children now, and we know that we can be passing those to the function. So now what we need to do is start building out our list. And so the first thing we need to do is, if we go back to our HTML files here, you see what's the structure of an HTML list. It's the UL tags and the li tags for each of the noted items. So we need to build that into our list. So we're going to say plus equals the first UL tag, UL, and then we're going to have a line break there just so it's pretty in our export output. And then we're going to copy this to make sure that we're mirroring our structure, and we're going to have the closed UL tag as well. And then what we need to do is we need to have Tinderbox process each of these children to give us the individual li tags. So if we need to produce this structure for each of the individual three nodes. So let me show you how that goes. So we're going to go here, and we're going to say take the variable vchildren dot each, and we're going to give it a variable NID like this. And now we're going to say for each of these children, I want you to go and process and give me the li tag structure. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to say this. And often I find it really useful to, when I know the structures that I'm looking for, I'm going to build the structure piece by piece, just like what we're doing here. And so now I'm going to go in and delete all of this, and I'm going to say name and ID. Okay, so what have we basically done here? We've said, hey Tinderbox, what I need you to do is I need you to go out and create a list of children. I need you to then create a variable so I can pass that list back to the note. I want you to go collect the children for that particular note's ID and get their ID numbers. I then want you to open up the list. I want you to then, for each of the individual children, process them, create their lead tag name structure. And in Tinderbox, basically what you're saying here is, hey Tinderbox, go get for the ID number of a particular note, go get that note's name. This is what that structure is saying here. And so then we're going to go ahead here, close out that lead tag, and now process it out. So now if I hit save, and I look at that particular note, you'll now see that we have a bulleted list. And you see I've got an error there. So that error is a spelling error, because that should actually be not this, that. That's how you close out a lead tag or UL tag. And so now you see we have a bulleted list of those children. Okay, so that's step number one, to be able to create the list. Now what we want to do is, let's say we had another set of bullets, and we now have note A, note B, and note C. Let's say we want to actually get a subset bullet. So not only do we want it to be note 2, 3, and 4, but we now actually want it to be note A, B, and C as well. Well, we can do that, and it's actually not very hard to do. So let's go ahead and demonstrate how I'm going to go about doing that. So in order to do that, I need to add a little bit of extra logic. So within this note tree here, I need to be able to say, hey Tinderbox, if I'm a note and I actually have my own children, what I need you to do is go process my children and pass that back. So what that's going to allow, what we need to do there is we now need to create a second function. And we're going to call this one function f second tier list children. And it too is going to have get an ID. Okay, so we have a second set of list children, and let's start populating the structure of our function, because we know what we need. So in this second list, we can basically we're basically doing the exact same structure up here, but rather than we're going to copy all of this here, but rather now, instead of getting a vlist children, what we're getting is what we're going to call this one a v second tier. Whoops, sorry. We're going to call this one a v second tier child list. And we're now going to say, all right, hey Tinderbox, you've got a list of children for the second function, and now what I want you to do is to go out and create that child list. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a list of children from this note now, and we're going to then start populating that second tier list of children. So we've got a new set of variables like this. All right, so now we've got our second list set of variables here. Okay, so essentially now what we've effectively done, and now what we want to do too, is I'm going to add in an extra tab so we get clean HTML. So let me show you how that works, by the way. So if I go in here and I look at the export HTML, you see we're getting UL, then that N was a line break, and then we're getting our lead tags, and then we're getting our notes here. If we want to clean up those lead tags a little bit, we don't actually need those in here. And so you'll see if I do this, you'll see I'm getting that interesting function there. And the last one, if I actually want to create the line break before those particular lead tags, I can create one there. Whoops. All right, so now if we go look at that, I did it again, sorry. It's the wrong / is this one. So you see, if we look at the HTML, we now have a clean HTML structure, and that's exactly what we're seeing here in the HTML. And if you note, if we want to get the title here, which I hadn't been doing just yet in my template, I can go down to our template and stick my title in here. Okay, so now we've got exactly the same structure that we're seeing in our WC3 schools notes. So we know we're getting there. We've got our template functioning working. And so now what we want to do is we want to be able to tell Tinderbox, hey Tinderbox, what I want you to do now is go and do the same bulleted list, but for the second tier set of bullets. So we're going to use the same basic template function structure. So we're getting that bulleted list. But then what we now need to do is for each of these individual bullets, we need to ask Tinderbox to process that for us. So we're going to do a little bit of extra logic. We're going to say if child count NID is greater than 0, then what I want you to do. I want you to call the function, this function here. I want you to call that function. Just to make sure I get it right here. Close that out. And so we're going to say, I want you to call that function. Now, not only do I want you to call that function, I actually want you to populate a new variable. So now we need to create a new variable, v second tier child list, and I want you to populate this new variable with the function here. So what have we just done? We've done what we've said is, whoops, put it in the wrong place, sorry. That was a little bit messy, sorry. I should have gone here. So what we've done now, essentially what we've said is, hey Tinderbox, if your children, okay, if your child count is greater than 0, sorry, I'm getting my structure a little off, there you go. If your child count is greater than 0, what I want you to do is I want you to populate this new variable, v second tier child list, with the results of the function v second child list collect. So what we're doing is we're taking this IID, we're passing this IID to this new function. The new function is getting that IID, and then it's going to process it and then return back the subset child list. And now what we then need to say is, hey, what we need to ask Tinderbox to do is, once you've actually done that, I want you to include the results of that second tier child list there. So now if we go and look at our notes, we now see we've got note 1, name, 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 name. Now that's weird. Why aren't we getting the name of our second tier child notes? Well, we're not getting our name because we didn't properly do the NID here. At least I don't think I did. Let me just make sure I've got it right. Here. Had an extra V there. Okay, so that's why that wasn't processing through. And so now you see that. Now you're also seeing that this note is repeating. So what I figured out when I was playing around with that is we need to make sure that when this process is done, we're actually clearing out that second tiered note ID so that it is not getting populated twice. So then if we do this, clearing that out, and so now if we go and look at it, you'll see now that we have the ability to have double tiered notes. So this is how is a process for going around developing second tiered notes within Tinderbox. There's so much more that we can be doing with this, in the sense that now that we have this basic function, we can now start doing bolding, URLing, putting appearance to it, adding in citations. But this basic structure helps you understand how to kind of merge together two or more functions and to be able to build your bolded list. So I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions, let me know. I know I just covered a ton, but you'll be able to methodically step yourself through this and hopefully be able to make it work for yourself. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.